guys, my name's Ella. In today's video I'm going to be talking about chronic illness, symptoms then versus now. So a lot of the time I experience people saying, how come you can't do this when you used to be able to do it? And that's kind of just the progression of a chronic illness. Sometimes it stays the same and sometimes it will escalate or your health and your abilities will deteriorate. So I've been thinking about some of the aspects of my chronic illnesses that I have over the past 5 years experienced things go from being able to do them to not being able to do them, and what parts of my chronic illness has changed. So starting with my joints, when I first became ill with my chronic illnesses, I didn't really have any problems with my joints that much. Yeah, they would ache occasionally, like anyone's would. I did, however, already have a turnout on my right leg, so rather than walking with my feet like that, I walk with my right foot turned out, and that's because the muscle in my hip is too short, and then my joints and my leg are compensating and turning my foot out. So that was how they were. Fine, just a couple of aches, only my right leg had a turnout and that was it. Now, 5 years or so later, all of my joints ache. Not all the time, but occasionally they ache. Both of my hips hurt to the point where it feels like there's bubble wrap in my joints, and when I walk too much it feels like that bubble wrap is popping. My left hip more so than my right hip. My knees are kind of compensating for that, and that's the same with anyone. If you hurt your back, a couple of days later your knees will hurt because your body's compensating for it. So they hurt a bit more than they would from walking. My hips hurt and then it causes my knees to kind of compensate. My joints are a lot more flexible, as in all of my ribs can sublux, whereas before only 2 of them did. Only 2 of my ribs would only ever sublux, never dislocate, whereas now all of them can, and I think it's the same for dislocate on a regular basis. Like, one of them will just pop in and out a couple of times a day, every day. And people ask me, isn't that painful? Doesn't that hurt? Like, you don't look like it's dislocating? If you can put on like a face for the feeling it feels like when you dislocate a joint. And yes, they do hurt. Do they hurt as much as they did the first time they dislocated? No. Well, it might do, or my body is compensating for it. It doesn't feel that bad anymore. But when your joints sit together, the more they dislocate, the more the connective tissue gets damaged, and the more that gets damaged, the less nerves remain. So I dislocate more frequently, but it doesn't hurt as much because I'm dislocating more frequently. The nerves are then being damaged or destroyed. So yes, they dislocate a lot more. My shoulder in my left arm, my left shoulder, I don't know if it's been like this for a long time or if I've only just noticed it and it's been like this for years. I cannot raise it to the side of my head the same I can with my right, and I can't lay it flat back. I'm not going to do it because it hurts. And that could be because 3 years ago the cartilage was so inflamed and basically growing, and it grew through the muscle that comes across here, and it destroyed and damaged the muscle so much that I lost about 60% of the muscle tone ability in my left arm. And thankfully when I noticed it at physio, she said that it had already started to retract and they wouldn't have to do anything to just like help the muscle basically. So I spent a lot of time building that muscle back up, and I'm still nowhere near as strong as I am in my left arm than I am in my right. So things like that change. So that could be one of the reasons that I can't lift my arm up to the side of my head. My right shoulder for the past 2 years has started subluxing, or I think it's subluxing. It goes into a funny position and it's like ant bites or like prickly sensation inside my shoulder, and it's very painful, and it goes all the way down and ends up in my palm, and sometimes it goes into the tip of my ring finger on my left hand, and that's where it feels like it's subluxing. I don't think it dislocates because it kind of like springs back. Or if I hold something, it will pull it down, and then it feels like a spring. When I let go of it, it kind of springs back up. So yeah, kind of just a general kind of deterioration, I guess, of my joints. Other than that, just when I'm like typing or writing or something, the knuckles or the joints in the tips of my fingers, and then the like I guess middle knuckle or middle joint in my right hand, they kind of are a lot more bendy than I guess they should be, and that's due to EDS. That's very common. I have, not all of my joints are hypermobile, so my knees aren't, but my elbows, my shoulder, and my right arm is, but obviously I can't in my left shoulder, and my fingers are on the higher end of being hypermobile, whereas my knees aren't, and they didn't want to test my hips because they had enough to prove that I did have EDS, and because of the pain in my hips they didn't want to try and like push it too far, if you know what I mean. Yeah, that has changed, and my general stamina and ability to walk the distances I can walk has become less, but then I sometimes do have days where I have bouts of energy. If I've had like a couple of days of rest, then I'll have a lot more energy than I normally would. However, I do often pay for the energy that I have, so I'll have a spike and then I use all of that energy, and then it dips down again the next day and I'm extremely tired and things like that. The same, it goes the other way. There are days where I have very little energy compared to what I would normally have, and then I can't use all that energy, and it then may be a little bit more the next day because I've rested the day before. Something that unfortunately is very common with people that have chronic pain syndromes or have other chronic illnesses is because of that you end up developing chronic fatigue, which is also called ME. And then from being in that pain and or that struggle, you then have chronic fatigue, and it then kind of makes everything a lot harder. From that, it then makes everything a lot harder. It then kind of feels like everything's a bit more heavy, And not everyone has the same kinds of chronic fatigue. People feel it in different ways. Some people get insanely bad headaches from it. Some people have really bad muscle spasms and things like that, from your body just not being able to do anything. Mine kind of just ends up feeling like everything is so much more effort than it is. So it just makes my whole body feel heavy, like there are weights attached to my ankles, and just the idea of having to get up and live my normal life, even though I do restrict myself, or I am restricted, it just makes everything so much worse. There are days where I don't feel it as much, and there are days where I feel it 10 times more than I normally would. I think the way that everyone deals with it is different. I've kind of learned that I have to live like an 80-year-old man, and if I need to take a nap at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, then I'll take a nap at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And there's nothing wrong with that. If I have to slow down to do my day, if I take 3 hours where someone will take an hour, then that's fine. I don't mind that, and the people that care about me and want to be in my life will understand that and get on with it. I do take a lot of coffee breaks when I go out shopping and stuff like that, which I think other people enjoy. You just rest and take it easy. There are certain, not tricks, but ways that I can kind of keep going a little bit more. I think it is very hard to look back at your life and look at where you've been and where you are, and how you cope with that has to be kind of look at what you were doing and look at what you're doing now. And sometimes it's just good to know that you were able to do the same things, but you just did it in different ways. And that's kind of what I look at. So I like going out shopping with my friends, my family, and maybe it would have taken me 2 hours to do something, and now it takes me 5. I'm still doing the same thing, I'm just adapting, and that's what it's about, is you adapt rather than quit. And that's something that I try very hard to do, rather than like giving up. There are some things that I just cannot do, and that annoys me because sometimes they're so stupidly simple. Like something that I faced today, I wanted to change the sheets on my bed and I knew that I couldn't, so I had to get help, and that's ridiculous. That's something so simple that a 5-year-old could do, I can't do. I try often to do it. Oftentimes it ends up with me stuck on the floor, but I will try and I will fail, but at least I know that I'm trying to find a way around it, and maybe someday I will find a way around it, but for now I will accept the help that I have to have. So leave me suggestions of how you do things now that you used to do before, how you adapt them in the comments below. Feel free to share this video, the more people the merrier, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.